We are live, I believe. Yep, getting the signal that we are live. And so it's that time of the week. It's time for Geek Speak. Pip could not make it today, so I am filling in her stead. My name is Phelan with Seymour Digital Media.
And I'm Rena from Little Works Indie Media.
Awesome. And today
And
we're.
today, oh,
Oh, go ahead. Introduce it because you're speaking.
okay, great. And today we're going to be talking about how to create a social media calendar that works for you. Now, you may have remembered a few months ago, we actually started with a calendar. Or maybe we just talked about a calendar in the strategy. So
Yeah.
we did cover quite a bit of content calendar for marketing. So what I wanted to do is tie this in. So generally speaking, you would have a marketing content calendar that would include things like e-blasts, newsletters, um, events, anything like that. And then you want to also have a social media calendar that goes along and helps to move those campaigns that or whatever it is that you've got going on in your overall marketing plan out into the world. We want to push that out into the world through your social. So this is really specific to social, but social is not really where you want to start. Where you want to start is with your overall content calendar, blogging. I think that was the one that I forgot. Blogging, events, um, and campaigns like paid campaigns, anything else. You want to get that onto a calendar, an overview calendar, and then you want to make a more detailed social media calendar. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yay.
Right on.
Nice. Uh,
All right, so we've got some notes here. Should we just start in that? Like, how often do you work with social media calendars at all in your job function?
I would say I try to. I think
Okay,
we're implementing, like, I have one big client that I'm working with someone else that she, because they're such a reactive business, she's trying to make it more proactive, which I think a content calendar
right.
does do. And so I
Yes.
think that that's kind of a big one that came up as like a topic when we were talking about it, is that you're trying to get ahead of things rather than just
Yes,
trying to figure out,
totally.
like, you're not
Yes.
scrambling. You're just like, you can actually
No.
like be ahead of the game.
So you're not posting the morning of so that the algorithm feeds it to your audience 2 days too late. And
Hmm.
that happens all the time. I cannot tell you how often that happens. So your content calendar, I use a spreadsheet, should have two columns, real-time events when things are actually happening in the real world, and then when you want to promote those things. So you definitely want to start promoting things like events or promotions or anything like that in advance, or make sure that you've got all the collateral organized. So that's what is the difference between what you're talking about, Phelan, being proactive instead of reactive. It's not like, oh, we've started this sale this morning and we
Yeah.
should probably put a post up about it. It's not really that helpful. Or especially for people that need to get their people on a regime. So, for example, accountants, anyone that has deadlines involved, they really need to get their clients motivated in advance of the deadline.
Yeah, I would also
All right.
just slightly furthering that as well of like seasonality. So you want to be, if you
Mm-hmm.
know that your business has certain things that come into, like, your fireplace company, and so you sell more fireplaces in the
Yeah.
wintertime. Well, you know this ahead of
Yeah.
time, so you should be posting about that ahead of the season coming in, so that it picks up a little bit of momentum. Also, new products is a really good one, or new services that you're
Mm-hmm.
offering, to get people excited, not just like post about it once and then just kind of be like, oh, why did no
No.
one know
In
about it?
fact, one of the best social tricks that I know, it used to be called the reality TV show method of social media. And I think that it might not be that interesting to call that anymore now that we have so many reality TV shows. But to take your audience through your process is actually one of the best ways to set yourself up for success. So if you're one of the things that I find so interesting is that many people think that, oh, I need to make a website. I'm going to make the website first, and then I'm going to tell everyone about the website and my social. But actually, if you take your social media audience through that process And so then you're building your audience and building up that's what buzz is called. You're building up that buzz before the launch of your website. Then you actually have somebody to say ta-da to, right? So, there's no point in posting to empty social media accounts that you've got a new website launched. Like, that's not going to be helpful. So building that buzz before and you can do that in so many ways. You can actually ask your community for feedback. You can, you can even post different versions of a logo and get feedback on that. It doesn't actually necessarily mean that you need to use any of that feedback. Some of that feedback you might find really useful, but people love to give their opinions on stuff, and that can be a really great way of getting engagement, is that reality behind the scenes, what's happening. So maybe not only the event, but the setup for the event, so that you're, doing a little sneak peek of what's going to be there. Like, even if you're doing like a cute little mocktail or something like that for an event, maybe posting the mocktail or something like that. So you want to always be looking at, again, in those two columns, what is happening in real time, and when do you want to start dripping information out about that, and when do you want to do the official launch through your social accounts. All right. So,
and I was just going to build off of that as well, that it was a very popular strategy in the indie developer. So if you're making like a small
oh
SaaS
yeah.
product, because what
Hmm.
you're doing is because as like guys are developers, they're not really big social people that have a difficult time posting. But if you're posting about like, oh, I'm building this feature for my tool, like, and then you can kind of go through showing how you built it and all that stuff, and it both builds
Yeah.
content as well as people get excited and interested in new features on your product. It also gives you a good opportunity if you got and this would apply for anyone, if you have a waitlist page and you can collect emails. So maybe your
Yes.
product isn't
Yeah.
there, but you can start
Yeah.
collecting emails, you start getting
That's
people
right.
interested, and then you could also, it's a way to stay engaged with them, because then you're not stuck on simply an algorithm, because ultimately you want to be collecting emails, because that's going to be super important, because algorithms update all the time and you don't want to get wiped out by it.
That's right. So what Phelan's talking about is, I think it was 2012 where they first had the big algorithmic shift. So before then, people were actually making sales right on Facebook, and
Mm-hmm.
they were doing a good business, and they didn't even have some people didn't even have websites, and they certainly weren't doing email marketing. And then all of a sudden Facebook, created the pay to play model, and boom, business went down overnight. So all of the type of marketing that you do, especially social media, should be in support of building your organic SEO on your website, getting engagement, because that ultimately helps with in a lot of ways, but also with your organic SEO, because those are, I forgot what the link is called. It's like a special link if you get a lot of engagement on it. There's a word term for it.
Oh yeah, that the name's evading me, but yes, I know
I know.
what you mean.
And then the other piece is your email list. So you always want to be focused on your website and your email list when you're doing social. And then, of course, you have to have all the social components in addition to that. But you want to be sending people back to your website and getting them engaged. So how do we do that? So the other really practical piece about having a content calendar that is, has the date of the real time and then the date of the events. So I make those in a list format. Then I have my calendar actually runs in a column format. So each day is a new column. And then those are sectioned off by weeks, and then by months, and then by quarter. And that's how I like to do it. And within that, you're going to plot all of your marketing stuff that you're going to need to be supporting, so that you know in advance when those things are being launched. So if you're doing an email invitation that goes out on one day, you might want to also post that email invitation on your socials. If you're um, starting a sale on a particular day, you want to make sure that the sale goes up on that right day. And then what you don't want to do is to have to start over from scratch. So once you've got all of these days in your and they're usually seasonal, as Phelan had pointed out, these sort of seasonal things. They could be Mother's Day event, they could be whatever's happening. You don't want to start over again. So um, always copy what you did from last year into a new spreadsheet or a new sheet, a new document or a new sheet, and just delete what doesn't serve you anymore. So that if you've used those cute little international days, you've got a list of international days on your
Oh, yeah, yeah.
date list, then you don't want to have to start over again by going to look for more of those. So I list all of the international days that work for Littleworks. So that would be International Women's Day. That would be Women in Business. I think there's a Women in Business Day. That's like Small Business Day. Um, all sorts of days that work for me. And then I have a list of them. I don't always um, organize for each of those every year because you want to change it up sometimes, and it also depends on what you're doing in your business at that time of year. But that saves you from having to look again. And so just copy that all over. And then what I do is I look for the blanks. Where are the blanks? And I fill in. Um, and really, I'm going through the process, and we have a good list of some benefits and things later. But then what I do is I go through and I go, okay, do I want to do what kind of fill-in post do I want to do? Do I want to do a Throwback Thursday where I feature some work that I did 5 years ago that was particularly successful? Do I want to do some motivational quotes around, New Year's to get people motivated again, or to get people motivated again in September? What's going to help me? Where do I put those sort of generic style posts? And you can put them in your content calendar, but you don't have to define what exactly it is at this point. I usually do that about a month in advance, or the previous month for the next month, where I actually sit down and decide, okay, I know I need a quote on this day because I've already figured out that I need a post for this day. Which quote is that going to be now? And then I go and do the research and figure out the quote for that content. So that keeps things fresh and easy, and it changes year to year, but the structure is the same.
Yeah,
And it makes for less work overall, especially if you don't have to start from scratch every year. That's
yeah,
ideal.
yeah. Makes sense.
So, so okay. Do you want to take a one of the
Uh,
steps, or should I just
sure.
keep going?
No,
Okay.
no, just keep going. Keep going. You're doing
Okay,
good.
cool. Because
You're
this
doing
is
good.
like my
Yeah.
favorite topic is this. So, one of the things that you want to do maybe before you even start, or when you have your blank calendar in front of you, and you know what? Maybe I'll put a template of what I use, of the document that I use, in the comments below. So come back and look for that a little bit later today. Um, but you want to look and make sure you're doing a social media audit, and you need to figure out what your KPIs are and how you're already performing. So you might base your KPIs um, on improvements to where you're standing right now, or you might want to choose completely different KPIs. It really depends on where you are in your business. So if you've got a very advanced marketing program happening, and you're selling things, and you're using ads, for example, then you're going to want to be focusing on those conversion KPIs. So how do you measure that, and where are you starting this year with that? And you're going to mark that down, or find a reporting tool that's going to help you place and track that KPI.
Yeah.
If you're just brand new and you're starting out, and you don't have 1,000 audience member on any platform, that's your starting place. So your first KPI is going to be growing that, because you need at least a certain amount of social proof in order to make sales online. And if you haven't got the audience, then that's your first barrier to success in my mind. I just find it so much easier to sell on accounts that have more than 1,000 people, and it doesn't have to be much more. Once you hit 1,000, it'll keep growing. Once it hits 1,000, though, I shift my energy to different KPIs, more the conversion type, the signups to the newsletter, the getting to website, and then what happens on that website, and what are my goals that I've set up on Google Analytics. And that's the third piece. When you do your planning of what you want to accomplish and what KPIs you're going to track, then you got to make sure it's all tracking somewhere. Hopefully that's going to be in Google Analytics, and you can organize that through Tag Manager. That's a really handy tool, and I know Phelan sets that up for people.
Hmm.
So and what Google Tag Manager does is it allows you to segment further the traffic that you receive at your website on Google Analytics. So you're not going to look in a Tag Manager to see the results. You're still going to look in Google Analytics. So you don't even have to know anything about Tag Manager. The only thing you have to be able to do is tell the person who's doing the setup for you what you want your conversions to be. So Google uses this sort of term conversion. It
Uh,
is a very generic term.
it's now key
Sorry.
event. Not,
Oh,
not
key
to be
event?
pedantic, but it's
Oh my
called key event
gosh.
now.
Okay, thank you.
But
It's
I
called
know,
key
and I'm only
event.
saying that because people will go in and they'll be confused.
I know, you're
It's
right. You're
because
right. You're right.
Google changed it for no reason. There was no
Okay.
good reason to change it.
Okay.
Conversion was a perfectly good term.
I know. And I think conversion actually is what my reports, my third party reporting system still uses. So that's probably why I'm still stuck
Yeah.
on that. Okay. So it's called key event in Google Analytics, and you need to assign what those are. So sometimes there'll be a form filled in, so like a contact us form. It could be any other kind of form. It could be a new patient form. It could be and
Scheduling a
whatever.
call, like
Oh yes,
schedule a
it can be
call down.
scheduling a call.
They going through a purchase, right? That's a classic one. Actually, an
Yep.
e-commerce purchase.
Yeah.
It could
Or
be, um, what are those are basically the big ones that you're going to
the big
have. Is
ones.
mostly
Yeah.
like just getting a hold of someone. The
Yeah.
other one that we have for our clients is like tell, link, click, and mail to. So if you have an email and you click
Yes.
it, I don't like
Yes.
those as much as a form because those you can
Yeah.
really see the captured information. So to my mind,
Yeah, that's
I'm
right. Yeah.
my favorite is always maybe a call. We have clients that really like
Mhm.
phone calls and
Yep.
convert really well on a phone, so that could be one. But
Yep.
generally, it's your tell link. So someone clicks your phone number to call you, clicks the email,
Telephone link. Yep.
yeah, clicks the email link to email you, or contact form. But contact form is like the big, that's the big one that I like because it
Yeah.
collects the actual information, and so you'll still have a record of it, and you can
Yeah.
then use that for your email marketing and all kinds of other stuff. And so it has other features, or even like Facebook lookalike audiences or Google's customer match list. So you, right, because you can take all the
Yeah.
people
So
that have
this
got a
is
hold of you and get more people like
yeah.
those people.
Right. So basically, you just want to sit down with whoever's setting this up and work out which conversions or events tracking that you want to actually know about. That's the most important part. So we're going to get back to the social media calendar, because what you want to
Yeah.
be able to do is to follow that roadmap. How did they get to you?
Hmm.
Because that gives you a lot of information. So if you're well established and you get tons of traffic with all of your posts, then you might want to consider doing what did we call them again earlier? We were talking about that, and deciding if they were interesting. Where is it? What is it? Come on, help
Uh,
me.
the
I can't find it written down on the list anymore. Where's my
the
brain?
post.
The UTA,
Uh,
the
UTM parameters,
UTM. Thank
which
you. So you can add what's called UTM parameters to your social posts, and we're probably going to have to find a how-to link on that also. Um, uh, Mostly, I do that in paid advertising,
yeah,
um, like paid Facebook or Instagram ads. That's really helpful
because
because that allows you to see the traffic and the conversions that happen in Google Analytics from that specific post. But if you don't have a lot of traffic, then you don't really need to track that granularly.
yeah,
Um, Generally, the insights on your posts in Facebook and Instagram will be helpful enough to know which posts are performing and which ones are not. But I usually focus on link clicks. That's one of my big one.
yeah.
Link clicks back, and also other forms of engagement, I guess. Um,
I just want to jump in here to say, just
yeah.
for the audience, Facebook ads does not by default do UTM parameters. They have a spot near the very end of
No.
when you're setting up the ads that you are able
Yep.
to add in UTM parameters, but they will not by
Yep.
default. And it's be
No.
very wary of that part, because it'll just look, they just count it on your Google Analytics as, or
Social.
yeah, just Facebook organic. It doesn't distinguish
Yeah.
between the two. So be very
No.
mindful of that.
Yeah, so you really want to be organizing for that because you definitely want to be able to distinguish between your organic and your paid conversions and traffic and all of that stuff. Those numbers are really important to distinguish.
Yeah.
Same with Google Organic, like SEO, Google Organic, and SEM, the Google Ads.
Hmm.
Those two things you want to be able to, because otherwise you don't really know what part of your budget is being used effectively and is working,
Yeah.
and it
I've
makes it
got
really hard to. Yep.
I've got a really good story about this as well. That we
Okay,
worked with
great.
a jeweler, and we had set up all this tracking, and so we could tell what was converting. So she was a jewelry store, but also she made custom rings, wedding bands specifically. And so she was running her own Facebook ads, and we were running Google ads. And so I could show in the analytics that she spent roughly like $1,000, got no conversions, not a single person purchased through the Facebook ads, but I could show her that she had 12 people that filled out the form to get a custom ring, and she converted three of them, meaning that she made
Right.
like $24,000, I think, some, a substantial
Yeah.
amount of money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ROI was well worth it. That for the number of people that we were getting to fill out the form, she was getting converting leads off of that, and then so we could actually show a very viable, like, here's your return on
Mhm.
investment from the Facebook ads, here's your return on investment from the Google ads. And so she just
Yes.
dropped the Facebook ads because it made sense for her, that it was just, if she sells it organically, great, but majority of where she was making her money was the custom work.
Right. Yeah. And they're Um, I forgot. I had a story too, and now I've forgotten what it was, but it doesn't matter. We'll just move on, and maybe it'll come back to me.
All right.
Oh, yes, I do remember. So somebody was saying that I remember getting a call from a client who was not a client yet at my agency, but working with somebody else, and their calls just dropped off one day, and they just assumed it was the Google Ads that wasn't they weren't working anymore. But
Mm,
when I dug in and took a look, because everything was segmented properly, it was clear that they had gotten caught up in the Google organic algorithmic change that happened. I think it was last spring,
oh,
and
okay, yeah, yeah,
so it was, I could show that yes, the calls are down, and no, it's not a change in the Google ad performance. It's in the change of organic calls that they were getting previously. So that's always really nice to be able to do that work and figure out what's actually happening, because your
yeah.
perception can be quite wrong. It can be quite,
Oh,
even mine. At first glance, I look at something and sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like this is why. And then
yeah.
you do a little more digging and you figure out that no, actually there's a little bit more going on here that I wasn't like able to see immediately.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Like, don't, like, that's a very important point, because I talk to clients all the time, and because they'll have a feeling about something, and then I go, well,
mhm,
I don't. It's not about what you or I feel about it. Let's go look at Google Analytics and like do a
yeah,
deep dive and figure out where's their drop off, what's been
yeah.
changing year over year. That the data, it's not always 100% accurate, but it's a better judgment on what's going on than any of our
Yeah.
intuition.
Okay, so now you've got your overall marketing plan, you've got your content calendar sort of fleshed out with the days of and all of your events and all of the blog posts that are coming out and all that stuff. So really, when you're writing blog posts and doing the emails and having promotions and all events and all that, your social posts actually fill in quite nicely.
Yeah.
And then I was saying that I have a column for the days of, and on that column includes the Google campaign that's running that day, the Facebook campaigns that are running that day, the um, the um, the Instagram posts, the Instagram stories, the Instagram reels, the Facebook posts, the Facebook stories, the Facebook reels, the e-blasts that are getting sent out. That's not really social, but I like to have it on that calendar anyways.
Well,
And
it's
then
marketing that
the
you're
Google
scheduling.
Business, yeah, Google Business listing if the post is relevant for that, and then whatever else you have. LinkedIn, we do LinkedIn and TikTok. So all of that's listed down, and then it's sort of decided, do we put this post out everywhere? So that tells you how many formats you're going to need to create that post for. If you need to edit the language, say for example, to put it on Blue Sky or Twitter or what, X. I'm never calling it X. I'm always going to call it Twitter. We're just going to go with that, and
Yeah,
Elon can
I don't.
just suck it. And yeah, so you might have to edit down for that. That'll tell you like how you need to organize your copy. You're going to need to change your call to action to be obviously organized for Instagram and TikTok, where there you can't put a live link in the status.
Mm,
And then it also allows you to know like the aspect ratios for each of the posts, the for the to give to your designer if you're doing that, or to organize yourself in Canva properly. So then you've got a really clear idea of the actual work that needs to get done. And if you're filling out your calendar like the month before, then all you have to do on your day of the week that you do your social posting is you just have to actually sit down, get all the assets, um, schedule what you can schedule, and then put in calendar, alerts or um, what is, yeah, calendar alerts to remind you of when you need to do your live posting.
yeah.
And then that it becomes more like rote. So you're not like sitting down, it's my day to do post, now what am I going to do? And you're not sitting there getting flustered and overwhelmed when you have everything else coming in at you, all the other information that's coming in at you. So you can actually just trust the calendar, and that's good. And of course, you can make subtle changes in your calendar. It's not a Bible, you don't have to follow it exactly. You can make some shifts. If something changes, absolutely change your calendar to match it. And so when anything new comes in, when somebody says, "Oh, I'd like to write a guest blog post," I'm like, "Excellent, great." And then the first thing I do is I go to my content calendar and mark that in and put it in the information for the social media calendar also, so that I know I'm going to make a social post featuring that guest blog post, for
Yeah.
example.
So one question that kind of comes to mind with what you just laid out is how
Yeah.
far ahead do you want to plan? Because like a year would be like other than like major events that are going to come up, but the actual
Yeah.
specifics of the individual posts, like I feel
Yeah.
like that should be done
So
almost
so my
monthly.
con my yeah, my content calendar is organized in two sections. So one section is the overview, and that covers the blog posts and e-blasts and events, that type of stuff. So that I do a year in advance, and then I add as things come along. And then the social part of it, we pretty much do, well, I advise my clients, if you're only doing your own, to do a month in advance.
Okay.
We don't quite do that in my agency. We work week to week for clients. So we're creating content this week that's going to be going out next week, and because we have so many clients, so that it works better rather than a month overview. But if you're just responsible for your own social media, then a month in advance or a few weeks in advance, like just to do it before the beginning of the month,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that you're organized. Yeah.
That's kind of
And
what I figured. Is because you don't want to
yeah,
overdo it and then have like
no.
you spent all this time laying out this perfect one, but because things are going to come up, and it's just I feel like it would be too much
Yeah.
work on any one person
And
to
that's
just like.
yeah, so I put out my blog posts on Tuesdays. So in the social media content calendar, you'll
Hmm.
just see on Tuesday blog post for all channels. And it's just blog post. And then when I know what that blog post is going to be, which I settle a month before or a few weeks before, then I will go fill in the title of that blog post. So
Yeah.
then it's all organized. So that's how I do it. So you're just sketching out where things should go. You don't need to be granular and know exactly what's happening unless you have that information and then you want to put it in.
Yeah.
And again, I cannot stress, because I just found out that my social media calendars weren't being copied every year. They were starting from scratch, and all the days, important days for the client, had disappeared. And so I'm going in and I'm changing that now, because I had already done all that work ages ago. I'd already had that meeting with the client. We already had approval on certain things.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that information. So I'm going back to hunt for it now. And So don't start from scratch every year. That's just a waste of time, or even every month.
Fair, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and that, there's we're not looking to reinvent the wheel as well, right? You don't make it as
Hmm.
easy on yourself as possible because you've as a business owner, you're going to have a million things on the go, and so,
Yeah, and then what you can do is you can take this content calendar and you can hand it off to an assistant or a VA or reception type person, anyone that's part of the business or not part of the business, or that you want to have brought on for this, that understands and can create your brand. So you'd want to hand them a branding document in addition to this.
hmm
And then they can create the collateral for you, give them access to your Canva, and then they can create all of the imagery in all of the sizes that you require. And then maybe they're even capable of writing well and can do this short form content. And I mean that in terms of it's actually a skill to be able to do short form content.
yeah,
But if they can do that, then fantastic. Hand the whole thing off, approve things before the end of the month for the next month, and then they can do the scheduling and the live posting depending on the channel.
perfect. All right, that is time for us. It is 11:31, and so I'm gonna say it's that was a fun chat. We'll definitely feel free to. Oh, Pamela is saying that she would like to see your example of your template. I'm trying to add it to the
Yes,
broadcast.
I will
Go.
put that in. Definitely
Uh,
put that in the.
and Nora says that makes sense. Don't make it granular, and that all makes sense. And then yeah, we'll
Yeah.
be in Business Marketing Mixers, the Facebook group. You can find us there, and we'll continue the conversation. Until then, my name is Phelan.
And I'm Rena, and next week come back at the same time for AI and websites, WordPress and more, features, plugins, and tools with Greg and Phelan. Right on. Have a
Awesome.
good week. We'll see you next week.
See you. Bye.